to work with today when it comes to how many international students they're allowed to accept.
The province has announced which universities and colleges can accept more and which ones will have to make a cut. Preston Mulligan reports.
In a bid to ease the housing crunch, Ottawa told Nova Scotia to reduce its international student population. To those schools who may quibble with the new numbers, the provincial minister responsible says, take it up with the federal Liberals.
This is in response to what they have imposed on Nova Scotia at 12,900.
That's 7,000 fewer than last year. Dalhousie, though, gets a big increase, 70% in fact. But others like Université Sainte-Anne, St. Mary's University, and some career colleges will have to adjust to fewer. Cape Breton University gets the biggest cut, its allocation slashed by 58%.
I think the key thing for me is to ensure that when international students come to Nova Scotia, that they get what they expect. They get the quality education that they expect. There's infrastructure there, such as housing.
Each international student pays up to $20,000 a year to attend CBU, double what Canadian citizens pay. Its president says his school will adapt to any financial loss. He's worried about the bigger picture.
We don't know what the reputation of Canada will be as a result of this decision. We've been hearing from our agencies and agents that all the talk is about Canada. What's happened in Canada in terms of shutting the doors?
The opposition Liberal leader puts the blame on the Houston government.
We're here in part because we've had a provincial government that's blindly been trying to double the population here in Nova Scotia without having a sustainable plan for housing.
Now, the nuance here is that if universities do a better job screening students, they may end up in better shape than these capped numbers suggest. In other words, universities have to be strategic. Only enroll those foreign students who are far less likely to get rejected for whatever reason by federal immigration officials. Preston Mulligan, CBC News, Halifax.
Nova Scotians who want to help during natural disasters will be able to sign up for a new volunteer corps called the Nova Scotia Guard. Premier Tim Houston says anyone with usable skills can register with the province, which will build a pool of volunteers that first responders and community organizations can call on during or after emergencies.
What we find is we have great instant command teams on site, but the thing that they're always asking for is like, do we have more of this? It might be people with a certain skill, it might be a piece of equipment. At the same time, we have lots of Nova Scotians who maybe have that skill, have that piece of equipment, and are wanting to reach out, but just making sure that we connect them in the time of an emergency on the fly has been a challenge. So this is a level of preparedness.
I'll talk to the Premier about the Nova Scotia Guard, and I'll ask him about the controversy around changing access to people's medical data in this province as well. That's our Newsmaker interview just after 6:30.
Premier Houston says he's considering whether his government will submit an alternative plan for pricing carbon to the federal government. Starting Monday, April 1st, several provinces, including Nova Scotia, will see a carbon tax increase. Gas will go up by about 3 cents a litre, but the carbon tax rebate will also increase. The rebate currently offers more than $1,000 to families of 4 in rural Nova Scotia. Houston says the carbon tax on consumers is not working in Nova Scotia because the consumption of gasoline has not decreased.
Many families in Nova Scotia are having a hard time finding childcare, but for parents of children with disabilities, there are additional challenges. As Selena Alders reports, some are worried they may never find a spot.
Courtney Peddle is a single mom of 2, juggling 3 different jobs to accommodate her son's schedule because she can't find a childcare centre that can meet his needs. Her son Hunter has autism and is nonverbal. Peddle says he's also a flight risk.
I've had to try and find jobs that work around their school schedule just so I can try to make some sort of income because I shouldn't have to be a stay-at-home mom. I want to work.
She says her son has been turned away by multiple childcare centers because of his disability.
It's nobody's fault that their brain is wired the way it's wired, but society has decided that we can't accommodate them, or if we are going to accommodate them, they all have to go together in an institution one way.
There are very few childcare centres across the province that are fully inclusive and accessible, most of which are at capacity with an extensive wait list. A spokesperson for the Department of Education says the province is working towards a childcare system where everyone is included, but plans for a strategy are still underway.
We Care Developmental Centre is one of the province's leading inclusive centres. It offers a variety of specialized services like physio, occupational, and music therapies. But it has a wait list of over 500 families.
It is very disheartening for them. Sometimes we hear that families, one of the parents is having to stay home, so they're unable to return to work. It really, in my years in working within the childcare sector, I've never witnessed such a desperate need for care.
Sarah Mullen's 8-year-old son Nash has autism, ADHD, a learning delay, and kidney disease. He attended We Care until he aged out and started school.
Honestly, if I could still send him there, I would. They don't operate like an after-school program or anything. But they were the definition of inclusiveness.
Like Hunter, Nash has also been turned away from multiple childcare centres because staff didn't have the resources to give him the additional support. Some of these centres were even advertised as inclusive.
If these facilities are going to offer these services, it should be a legal requirement that they're inclusive to everybody.
Despite 3 years of searching for a centre that will welcome Nash, Mullins has given up. She's now looking for alternatives and will continue to advocate for her son. Selena Alders, CBC News, Halifax.
A Halifax student is speaking out again after plans to install a chairlift at her school have been delayed. Lux Melanson started a petition in February calling for the lift at Fairview Junior High so students who use mobility aids can access the basement tech ed class. The Halifax Regional Centre for Education originally expected to complete the work by the end of March, but HRCE says it's now looking at the end of May. 15-year-old Melanson is disappointed.
So at first I had hopes, and then as the month, when it got to the middle of the month, I was like, okay, there's no way. They're not going to do it. And even beforehand, I always had that inkling in the back of, they're probably not. I mean, they weren't very happy that I was doing it anyway.
HRCE says the delay is because during the approval process, the lift requirements changed and now a specialty one is needed. It says unforeseen delays are common in all construction-related projects.
One of 3 men convicted in the brutal murders of 3 McDonald's restaurant workers in Cape Breton has been granted full parole. Freeman McNeil and 2 other men broke into the fast food restaurant in Sydney River in May 1992, killing 2 employees and stealing $2,000 from the safe. A 3rd employee was shot dead as the 3 men were leaving. The Parole Board of Canada decided during a hearing today that 55-year-old Freeman McNeil should receive a conditional release as his risk to reoffend is rated low to moderate.
There's a development in the Quadriga cryptocurrency fraud case. It involves one of the co-founders of the company who's believed to be on the run in Asia. The BC government has launched a lawsuit and will try to seize a safety box belonging to Michael Patron. The box is said to contain hundreds of thousands of dollars and gold bars. BC says these are proceeds of crime and it wants those assets dispersed to victims of the $200 million fraud case. The company's other founder, Gerald Cotton, died while traveling on his honeymoon. He and his wife had ties to Nova Scotia, owning a number of properties here. His wife, Jennifer Robertson, says she has no idea the crypto exchange was fraudulent and agreed to forfeit about $12 million in assets to repay victims. The case has been the subject of a Netflix documentary and a CBC podcast.
All right, the long weekend is just about upon us, and the wet weather continues to linger.
But it sounds like there is hope on the horizon.
There definitely is light at the end of the tunnel. The latter half of the weekend will be much brighter, and we just have to get there first. Rainfall warnings have been issued for, yes, you can see here, basically the western third of the province, and that is indeed where we are looking at that heaviest rainfall. A base of 60 to as much as 100 millimeters, looking most likely Yarmouth, Digby, and edging into Annapolis County, but Shelburne, Liverpool, Lunenburg, and up into the Kentville area, 40 to as much as 80 plus millimeters possible here. Again, I have the plus given we will be seeing downpours, the risk of thunderstorms. 20 to 50 millimeters widespread in the east, but it does look like we will be looking at a little less along that Northumberland shore region. But yeah, a lot of rain, and that includes what has already fallen today. And you can see where it's been really streaming in as expected for those west and northwest sections of the province. And that line stretches all the way down to the U.S. South and through the Carolinas right now. And that is all still to stream through tonight and tomorrow. Periods of rain. We'll run the risk of seeing a thunderstorm mainly throughout the day tomorrow, with those winds still in from the south, keeping temperatures very mild, 10 to 14 degrees, widespread temperatures again. And then as we move into Friday night and Saturday morning, we are going to be looking at the winds shifting to west to northwest, then westerly, and that will usher in some cooler temperatures. Saturday, we see a few showers, mixing to a couple of flakes, but generally just easing conditions through Saturday. And yes, we'll see some sunshine on tap for Sunday. Believe it or not, the 7-day forecast does include some sun. We'll break it down with your full forecast coming up.
Yes, very welcome.
Little Easter gift. Okay, thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks.
A new international league will be sailing into Halifax this summer. They call it the F1 of sailboat racing, Sailed Grand Prix, or simply SailGP. And this summer, it will be coming to Canada for the first time ever. The CBC's Brett Ruskin has more.
We all recognize the ferry crossing Halifax Harbor, but this summer there's going to be a new type of boat crossing. SailGP is coming to town. To tell us about it, here is Phil Roberts. And Phil, you are one of the drivers, or the driver for the Canadian boat.
Phil Robertson looking to duplicate what he did last year.
What is SailGP?
Yeah, well, SailGP it's a yacht race on hydrofoiling catamarans. They are 50 feet long, they fly above the water, they go up to speeds of 100 kilometers an hour, so extremely fast. We've got an incredible little harbor here where the racetrack's going to be.
So you're going to have these big, fast boats going back and forth. Well, what's the plan for June?
Yeah, we're currently in the middle of the racetrack, so you're going to have an amazing spectacle. You've got plenty of spots to come out and watch it and see, some boats going very, very fast.
And so folks who are on the Halifax side, folks who are on the Dartmouth side, they can all, it seems like it's going to be a big kind of amphitheater, a natural amphitheater for this big event.
Yeah, in terms of sailboat racing stadiums, it doesn't get much better than this.
So when you're on these boats, how intense does it get when you're there and racing?
It gets very intense. Yeah, it's extremely fast for a sailboat. There's a lot of action. We've just had a weekend racing in New Zealand and had 3 crashes in the space of about 2 minutes.
Oh, and this could be disaster for the German crew. Can they keep it upright? Just. Oh, indecision by Eric Kyle there.
Yeah, there's plenty of action to watch.
Canada's pretty good at this event, it seems. Like, this is the first race like this in Canada, but Canadians are already pretty good competitors.
And when they came to the line, it was Canada that would win race number 2.
Yeah, we're going well. The team is amazing. We've got plenty of locals from the Halifax area as well racing on board the boat. There's 6 crew members. And we're good. We're doing all right. We've got a few more points to get before the end of the season, but it's going really well.
So first weekend in June, that is when SailGP comes to town, the first Canadian SailGP event. You're going to be there on the boat.
We're going to be there, we're going to be racing, and we're going to be gunning for the win as well.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Al.
Cheers.
A retired crab fisherman in New Brunswick stepped forward today to claim the biggest lottery jackpot ever awarded in Atlantic Canada, and it happened not a moment too soon.
Congratulations.
Merrill Chiasson and his partner picked up a check for $64 million this morning in Moncton. The ticket was set to expire April 15th. Chiasson says it's been sitting on his dresser since the last draw in April. The draw last April, nearly a year ago. And when he finally checked the ticket at a store, he said he wasn't sure if he'd won $64,000 or $64 million because of all of the zeros. Chiasson has been working as a crab fisherman in Basse-Caraquette. Now he says he can retire for good.
I love that he left it on
Just
the dresser
leave it
for a
there,
year.
right? All the things that could have happened to it.
No kidding. All right, there's a global audience watching as foaling season gets underway at Meadowbrook Stables in Alton, Nova Scotia.
And this year, they're asking for more volunteers to help with a unique way of keeping an eye on the pregnant mares. I paid a visit to the barn as they welcome this year's crop of foals. Have a look.
Yeah, good mama. You say hi to your baby. We've been foaling out mares for 16 years, so we ended up streaming through YouTube. So now we have the live feed on there, and people from around the world can check in at any point.
All right, so Kayla, it's all hands on deck this time of year. I understand you're looking for some extra sets of eyes. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we've got, well, we did have 10 mares that were due to foal. We've had 2 that have had their babies now. So we have 8 more to go, and then we'll have 4 mini donkeys coming in as well to foal out. So it's always good to have extra eyes on the cameras because, of course, we're busy. If we're out putting hay in the field, obviously we're not watching the cameras at that point. So it's good to have some eyes on them just to make sure everyone's safe.
So this is Nayla and River. So Nayla foaled yesterday, right?
Yeah, just over 24 hours ago.
Did someone alert you via the webcam or?
Yep, yeah, we had someone that was watching and she sent a message saying that she thought she was being suspicious and it was when her water actually broke and then we were doing chores at the time so we weren't watching the cameras ourselves. We've got volunteers literally from all over the world. We've got some from Ireland and Australia, all across Canada and the US. We're getting more people kind of volunteering every day. They enjoy watching them, and it's nice to have people in different time zones because then, of course, when we're sleeping, they're awake, and so it's really helpful.
So how does it work if somebody's watching the webcam and they go, oh, I think something's happening?
Yeah, we have our cell number on the live feed, and they can just text us or call us and let us know that they think the mares are up to something. Sometimes we'll get false alarms, but we'd rather that than miss something important.
So why do you think so many people are just enthralled with what's happening?
I think it's something that people don't get to experience on their own, and we get to kind of share our world with them, and they really seem to enjoy it. And we've got people that come back every year that want to watch, and they get very excited for foaling season every year, and then of course they share it around with their friends and family, and it's kind of become a global thing.
How have the first 2 births gone?
Great. The first one was in record time. The mare laid down and the foal was on the ground in 3 minutes, so it was really fast. And the second one, she was a first-time mom and she did great. She was really good and accepted her baby and absolutely loves her.
And, you know, Mother Nature being what it is, sometimes things don't turn out well. Is that a concern that, you know, people will be watching for fun and then things go awry?
It's definitely a possibility, but I kind of say that breeding and having horses is not all rainbows and butterflies. There's certainly, you know, tragedy and loss, and I think people should experience that as well. You know, it's like I said, it's not everything goes smoothly all the time, so to have people have that reality of what it's really like, I think is helpful.
All right, so what are some of the signs that Holly's showing that she's getting close?
So she's getting close. So the biggest is their mammary development. So as their udder starts to grow and get bigger, we look at their overall shape. So their belly will start to drop and get a bit of a V shape as they get closer.
It looks like it's
she's getting pretty low. We kind of look at their hind end too to see if they're like getting soft in the hind end. They'll kind of lose some of the roundness in their hind end as they get closer because everything's relaxing in preparation for the baby. Some mares go off their feed. Ours usually don't. They like to stuff their faces, so they're always game for food.
Yeah, she's not slowing down.
Yeah, she's not slowing down any. She says, I'm eating for 2. I'm taking this seriously. It's my favorite time of year. Like if I could just birth out mares year round, I would do that. I absolutely love it. It's always exciting to see new life come into the world and just see the baby experience everything for the first time. And then mares, especially if it's their first baby, kind of seeing how they respond and react to, you know, bringing a baby into the world. And it's pretty cool.
River is enjoying life so far, I would say.
I certainly enjoyed that assignment, I must say.
That was a top pick for you, for sure.
Yeah, so cute.
Yeah, well done. All right, first quick break on the way. Stay with us.
There's a lot more to come on CBC Nova Scotia News. Social media lawsuit. 4 Ontario school boards are taking Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to court.
Carbon tax tensions. Conservatives in Ottawa make a last-ditch effort to stop the increase, set to kick in on Monday.
There's a lovely shot of East Dover. Ryan's up next with his weather forecast. We're back after the break.
All right, we're just talking about it. The weekend's not a washout, far from it.
The Easter Bunny,
Yeah.
a little soggy early on, but it'll be okay by Sunday, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, we've been looking for silver linings, right? And so this big silver lining is that the weekend, the latter half is looking good. Today, we were talking about the warm temperatures, and this is temperature bust season, right? So if we get a little bit of extra sun in the mix, like what happened today and along the north part of the province, where the rain wasn't pouring down, at least, even if it was just dry, temperatures really bumped up. Look how warm we got today.
Wow.
So we were thinking, 14, 15, maybe 16.
19?
And we had some 18s and 19s on the board. In fact, that Ingonish Beach temperature, 19.8. It's the second warmest March temperature recorded there. So yeah, we exceeded temps, which is not hearing any complaints about that. We've dropped off a little bit, basically all across the board, but still 16 at Ingonish Beach. Shockingly, there's still snow on the ground.
It's stubborn,
Doesn't
isn't
give
it?
up easily, does it?
The banks were high there, for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Still 16 at Ingonish and the Highlands there, and beautiful, beautiful spot, of course. Thanks to Nova Scotia webcams for that shot. And yeah, cloud cover. The other thing that has, again, been the difference today, there has been less pea soup thick fog. Certainly some spots where the fog patches have been in the mix, but the visibility has been better. We will be watching those fog patches to thicken up, though, tonight. Again, as the temperatures will drop a little bit, we are going to be looking at the fog patches, especially along the Atlantic coastline. We've been seeing these periods of rain streaming in, and they're going to continue as this line stretches all the way back down to Cape Hatteras, and we'll be watching that to continue to push through as we move into, well, tomorrow night into Saturday. Note the cool temperatures across the prairies right now. A bit of a dip in the jet stream, and this is where that secondary low is starting to develop along the eastern seaboard. So tonight, temperatures in the 8 to 12 range for lows. Those southerly winds, 30 gusting 40 to 50. Fog patches, as we said, overnight and into tomorrow. Again, the heaviest rain still expecting tonight into tomorrow to be right here across basically the west and northwest of the province. And then for tomorrow, I think it really kind of fills in with a better chance for these pockets of rain to come in for central and eastern areas as well. This is where things will start to fill in a little bit and turn damp, even for you folks in Cape Breton, where things haven't been too bad today. Certainly a wetter forecast for tomorrow, particularly in through the afternoon. 9 to 12, but again, Inverness, right along the coast here, could see maybe some pockets in the 13, 14 range here with winds in from the south. 12 to 14 for the Northumberland shore. Again, tomorrow, looking at 8 degrees in those onshore winds. Looks like 10, 12, 14 degrees for the Fundy and Valley region. Now note, tomorrow afternoon, we are going to be seeing a wind shift. Annapolis Royal will tap into this late afternoon. Digby, Yarmouth, temperatures here just 7, 8, 9 degrees as those winds will shift to a bit more north to northeast into the late parts of the afternoon. Halifax, 10, 11, 12 degrees, a little cooler rate along parts of the coast, those winds from the south. So there's the shift to the northerly wind on the backside of the low. Friday night, starting to see some wet flakes mixing in, mainly over higher terrain areas. South Mountain, Saturday morning. Showers mixed with flakes will taper off through Saturday morning into the afternoon time period. That low departs. Could even see a late afternoon break of sun. Easy for me to say. 4 or 5 degrees here in and across the province for Saturday. And again, by the time we are said and done, this is going to be our bullseye, right? Best chances for 50 are going to be here, but can't rule it out for even through areas like Kentville and Liverpool, edging into Lunenburg. Sunday looks beautiful, and we will see some building clouds into the afternoon. Best chance of sun appears to be in the morning. Mix of sun and cloud Monday as well, near 6. Light mix on Tuesday. Next system that we'll have to keep a track of will be Wednesday into Thursday, Wednesday night into Thursday. Tom and Amy.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much there,
Thanks,
Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, up next, I'll speak with Premier Tim Houston about his plans for something he calls the Nova Scotia Guard, and also about protecting your healthcare data. That's our Newsmaker interview.
Please stay with us. You're watching CBC Nova Scotia News.
The Houston government is setting up a new Department of Emergency Management which will oversee the Nova Scotia Guard, which will be a group of volunteers from across the province who will help communities during and after emergencies. Premier Tim Houston is with us now. Sir, Nova Scotians are pretty good to jump in and help when there's an emergency. Why do we need the Nova Scotia Guard?
Absolutely, they are. That's the blue noser way that we talk about, stepping up for your community, and you be there for your family and your friends in a time of need. But what we found that through a number of disasters, for sure, we've had our fair share, devastating loss of life in floods and fires and storms and hurricanes, and we know there'll be more. We know that the climate is changing, and there'll be more. And what we find is we have great instant command teams on site, but the thing that they're always asking for is like, do we have more of this? It might be people with a certain skill, it might be a piece of equipment. And at the same time, we have lots of Nova Scotians who maybe have that skill, have that piece of equipment, and are wanting to reach out, but just making sure that we connect them in the time of an emergency on the fly has been a challenge. So we want to, this is a level of preparedness. We're going to reach out to Nova Scotians, and Nova Scotians can be part of the Nova Scotia Guard. They can say what skills they have, what tasks they can do, what equipment they have, and we'll inventory it. And when the time comes, when it's needed, we're going to look at the list of those that have put their hand up and said, hey, I can help, and we're going to call on them to help. So it's a level of preparedness that's new for the province, and it's necessary, but certainly it's harnessing the skills of Nova Scotians, but it's harnessing that blue noser spirit to pitch in and help, and I'm really excited about it.
Will there need to be some proper training to get people ready?
That'll be something that's on offer for sure. What I say is there's room for everyone in the Blue Noser Guard. It could be like somebody who can make phone calls or make sandwiches, all the way to somebody who can drive a plow or is a certified diver. But some of the skills that we're looking to inventory and know where they are, or know where they exist, we'll need to test them and certify them. We'll do other opportunities. We'll offer training. We want to work with Nova Scotians to make sure that when somebody says, hey, I can help, and we call on them to help, that they're in a safe situation and that they can do, what's necessary at that time to support Nova Scotians. So it's just a level of structure around preparedness, but it's really focused on Nova Scotians, and they want to help. We know that. We see that every single time. But going on a show like this and saying, hey, does anyone have a snowplow that they can help on the spot? We can do that in a more structured, organized way, and that's what the Blue Noser, that's the Blue Noser spirit we're trying to harness.
How concerned are you that there could be a liability risk to the province if you're asking people who are not professionals or who don't do a particular kind of work every day professionally to get involved in an emergency?
Yeah, so this is the process here is we've tabled a piece of legislation, but we know that we're going to pause that over the summer, have meaningful consultations, travel around the province, talk to Nova Scotians, talk to first responders, our volunteer fire departments, search and rescue people, talk about what's necessary, some of their thoughts. This is really an exercise where a group of people have drafted the piece of legislation, but there's over 1 million Nova Scotians, and they can all put their stamp on this too, and we want that. But the liability part, that's why we're going to work with the not-profit organizations, United Way, Red Cross, many of them, to talk about their vetting process and talk to other organizations about the certification process, just to make sure that we keep everyone safe. We have everyone in a safe environment when they're responding to help, that they can do that safely and confidently. When they're calling for help, the people that are responding will know that the people who need the help will get appropriate help. So it's a big resource pool. It exists in the province in many different ways, in many different buckets. We're going to pull it together and allow everyone to share in the pride of the Nova Scotia Guard. It's a level of preparedness that will it will really have a meaningful impact going forward, and it will have a meaningful impact because it will allow every single Nova Scotian to be part of it.
Is this at all an acknowledgement that we aren't as ready for disasters and emergencies as we need to be?
Not at all. It's an acknowledgement, though, that there'll be more emergencies. That's just the reality of our life. And right now, when we had the wildfires, we get support from other provinces, send firefighters from other countries. With the snowstorms, Team Rubicon was here. They're from other parts of the country. They do amazing work. But at the same time, maybe when we had the snowstorm in Cape Breton, there was probably people in the valley or down in the South Shore who would love to have been who are able to help and were willing to help and would want it to help, but just knowing that they're there and that they exist is something that in the moment of an emergency is difficult. So with the Nova Scotia Guard, we'll have that inventory of people and skills, and the incident commander can turn to the Nova Scotia Guard and say, hey, do we have 20 people that can shovel? Do we have 10 snowmobiles? Do we have, and the Guard can call on those, and it'll be Nova Scotians who put their hand up and said, if you need me, I'll be here, and we can do it in real time in an emergency event.
All right, before I let you go, I want to quickly ask you about the amendments to the Health Information Act, allowing government greater access to healthcare info to better understand the system. It's been controversial. Some would say it's an overreach by government. Are you considering putting in some more protections in place to protect privacy around personal healthcare data?
I'm really glad you asked about this. There's a significant amount of misinformation about this, so the reality is that there's already something called the Personal Health Information Act. It's very strict on protecting people's privacy. So of course the patient is front and center for us. And right now we want patients to have access to their own personal records. We want the patient to have it. It's not that the minister wants it. We want the patient to have it. And people will be familiar with, having to maybe sometimes pay for their records or having difficulty getting their records. So this is about access for the patient to their own record. It's also about the ability of government to manage the system. So right now, I can tell you how many ambulances were deployed yesterday. I can tell you how many people went to the emergency department. I don't know who they were, but I know how many. But I can't tell you how many people went to a family doctor yesterday. That's a critical piece of information to manage the system. So we just want system-wide data as to what's happening in the system so we can better, again, prepare and manage the system. But the Personal Health Information Act, that makes sure that people's private information is private. And we've had good discussions with Doctors Nova Scotia and the College of Physicians on this. They know that, and they've said publicly that they know that we're sincere in our intentions and that they can trust us on private information.
But some of those doctors and doctors groups have expressed concerns that there's not enough protection to ensure the privacy of medical records.
I think they've also been very clear that they know that they're working with the government. We've had these discussions, and they've said and that they believe that there are ways, the regulations, the process we can come up to make sure information is safeguarded, so that the physician's relationship with the patient is not impacted. I mean, they've also said that they know what we're trying to do here, and it's all governed under the Personal Health Information Act. It's a 35-page document. It's a serious document. The minister has no interest in knowing somebody's personal relationship with their doctor. But as a province, we want to know how many people saw the doctor, how many people, so we can properly plan. So there's been a lot of misinformation, and I can understand people having some concern and anxiety about that. But I just want people to know is we're not interested in understanding their personal information, but we want them to have their personal information. That's what this is all about, giving the patient access to their health record. People will be familiar with paying a few $100 to try to get their health file, So this is what we're trying to do, is make sure people have it in real time. And I've had doctors tell me they've had a patient in front of them, because there's a pilot now, and they might ask the patient, which vaccines have you had? When did you have the vaccines? But who knows that? I don't know. I can't remember when I had one as a child or something. But under the pilot, people would have that right there, and they can open it up and show their doctor. These are the vaccinations I've had. These are the prescriptions I'm on. They'll have it. The patient will have their own information in their hand. That's what we want. But we also need overall data, numbers, how many ambulances, how many family doctors, to manage the system. So this is what this is all about. And I know that there's some anxiety, but this is part of the process of making legislation, and are always going to honor that privacy and that very personal relationship people have with their physicians. Of course, we just want patients to have their data.
Mr. Premier, we'll leave it there. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Coming up, 96 hours. An investigation by the Fifth Estate has uncovered new details about the Titan submersible.
Welcome back to CBC Nova Scotia News. 4 Ontario school boards are suing some of the biggest social media companies.
They allege products like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok are designed to rewire the way children think, behave, and learn, and not in a good way. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson explains.
It's a David versus Goliath battle, the first of its kind in Canada. 4 major school boards launching separate lawsuits against social media giants, Snapchat, TikTok, and Meta, asking for over $4 billion. They allege that these companies have knowingly and negligently disrupted and fundamentally changed the school learning and teaching climate by creating and sustaining prolific and/or compulsive use of their products by students.
We've just seen such a significant change in student behavior and student mental health and well-being that it is just incumbent upon us to speak up, and we cannot wait any longer.
The lawsuit comes at a time of high scrutiny of social media and its impact on the lives of kids and teens. It also comes on the heels of hundreds of similar legal proceedings launched by school districts in the U.S.
Not all of these things will stick, but I think what's happening is governments, parents, school boards are trying lots of different things to make the student experience as they grow up better, right? So they're less distracted, they're more focused, and they're able to learn and participate in the world the way we want to.
In a statement to CBC News, Snapchat spokesperson wrote, "While we will always have more work to do, we feel good about the role Snapchat plays in helping close friends feel connected, happy, and prepared as they face the many challenges of adolescence." Experts say it's questionable whether the school boards will receive $4 billion, but the lawsuit makes a powerful statement in and of itself. So far, it's a big hit with concerned parents.
If they're not going to make voluntary changes, then maybe doing it through the courts is the most effective way. I think the evidence is showing that there's clear relationships to anxiety, depression, with outcomes like self-harm and loneliness. I guess it's complicated why that happens, but it seems clear that there's a relationship there.
And medical research backs up that claim. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
An increase to the federal carbon tax is scheduled to kick in on Monday, but not if some Conservative leaders have their way. They say the tax is making life less affordable for Canadians. And this week, some of them made their case before a parliamentary committee. Ashley Burke has the details.
It's a beautiful Axe the Tax t-shirt.
Conservatives coming together to fight the carbon tax. Alberta's Premier joining Pierre Poilievre's rally in Edmonton, just days before the federal tax is set to go up, then taking her message to MPs.
This isn't just reckless, it's immoral and it's inhumane.
Danielle Smith was among 3 Conservative premiers speaking out at a parliamentary committee this week.
This cost is not helping. It isn't driving innovation.
The Liberals allege the Conservative chair hijacked the committee so premiers could rail against the carbon tax as a political stunt.
Is it the case that you're more interested in playing politics than actually looking after the affordability of New Brunswickers and tackling climate change?
On the contrary, I think the playing politics I've witnessed here.
7 premiers oppose Monday's hike to the price of fossil fuel. Consumers can expect to pay about 3 cents more for a liter of gas. Quarterly rebates sent to households are also rising to help offset the costs.
Do you think you're losing the communications battle here?
Conservative premiers specifically are misleading Canadians. The Conservative opposition in Ottawa and Pierre Poilievre are not telling the truth to Canadians.
Trudeau says Conservatives are failing to tell the public about those rebates.
It is more money in the pockets of families right across the country at a time where more money is needed, and it's concrete action to fight climate change.
There's other ways of reducing emissions other than digging into people's pockets and punishing companies.
The Prime Minister sent a letter calling on these premiers to come up with a credible alternative plan to reduce emissions, but there's no sign the tax hike is going anywhere. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's economy grew by 0.6% in January. That's more than economists expected, and it's the fastest growth rate in a year. The real estate, rental, and leasing sectors continued to expand in January. The growth rate was also helped by the resolution of public sector strikes in Quebec. Preliminary estimates for February suggest there's more momentum in the economy. Despite the growing economy, recent inflation figures have come in below expectations. So some economists say the Bank of Canada is still on track to lower its lending rate in June.
An investigation by the Fifth Estate has uncovered new details about the Titan submersible and its deep-sea expedition to the Titanic that killed 5 people. We now know multiple warnings were issued about the sub's critical design flaws. Mark Kelly now on why these serious issues may have been ignored.
It was 2023 and the Titan submersible had become a bit of a fixture in St. John's Harbor.
Check it out. Got a lot of people working on the submarine.
This is YouTuber Jake Kohler preparing to leave port bound for the Titanic. But in Kohler's words, everything went wrong on the trip, including a failure of the sub's computer system.
We've got to find out what this control problem is. That's sort of important, controlling the sub. It's up there with life support.
The trip was called off, and this was just 2 weeks before Titan would implode. But this wasn't the first warning. There were troubles with the submersible. The Fifth Estate obtained this safety report written by OceanGate's own Director of Marine Operations. In 2018, David Lockridge outlined more than 24 design flaws with the sub, including that experimental carbon fiber hull that deteriorated with every dive. His boss, Stockton Rush, fired him the next day. Rush assured people he had partnered with Boeing, NASA, and the University of Washington to design the hull. When contacted by the Fifth Estate, all denied they had built, designed, or tested the sub. Canadian Will Conan, who builds subs in California, warned Rush in 2018 in an open letter his expeditions to the Titanic could end in tragedy.
So do you believe that he was regularly misrepresenting the safety of the Titan? Oh, sure he was.
So why did no maritime safety agencies in St. John's question the seaworthiness of the sub as it traveled in and out of the harbor with paying passengers for 3 years? The St. John's Port Authority told us they watched the Titan come and go, but said it was Transport Canada's job to inspect it. Transport Canada told us because it was a U.S.-flagged vessel, it was up to U.S. authorities. But the Fifth Estate determined the Titan was never flagged in the U.S.
I think it was General MacArthur said, you're remembered for the rules you break. And, you know, I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
Was Transport Canada aware of all the warnings about Titan? The agency declined our interview request, citing the ongoing investigation by the Transportation Safety Board. Mark Kelly, CBC News, St. John's.
Climate change means habitat change, and even though cities don't always get associated with nature, they're in for big shifts when it comes to what wildlife species do live there. The CBC's Emily Chung has that story.
To make sure they're
This team at the Toronto Zoo works to protect baby Blandings turtles.
We have the little guys up here, and then they'll go bigger down that way.
In the wild, they're threatened by predators like raccoons or dogs. But there's one threat they may not be able to escape.
Climate change is a very big factor for these guys. It's affecting kind of their breeding cycle.
New Canadian research reveals the animals we share our cities with may have to respond to the changing climate by moving in or out.
The nature that we interact with is the nature in our backyards, it's on the streets, it's in the local parks.
The research looked at 2,000 kinds of wildlife in 60 cities across North America, modeling where they could live in the climate we could expect by the year 2100. The amount of change is shocking, says this researcher.
Seeing hundreds of species moving in, hundreds of species moving out.
It also says some of Canada's largest cities will see the biggest changes. A warmer, wetter climate driving out some species while bringing in hundreds of new ones. This Toronto pest control company says it's already seeing a boom in one critter.
We used to get maybe a few calls per year. People didn't even know how possums look like. They migrated to the north, due to obviously the climate change and urbanization.
Other newcomers are much smaller and bring public health concerns with them.
I think we need to get much more prepared for the spread of zoonotic diseases
that are always more prevalent in warmer, wetter areas.
Big changes to our urban wildlife creates challenges, but the new study found we can keep changes less drastic if we do more to mitigate climate change. Emily Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Don't want to skip over, Friday, Saturday, but Sunday, I'm looking at that. Looks good in the forecast.
With good chocolate eating weather,
yeah,
right?
Perfect,
Sunday,
isn't it?
yeah.
Absolutely. And Amy, by the way, thank you for bringing the brightness.
The sunshine in the room for sure. Yeah,
trying to brighten things up here.
Do whatever we can, yeah.
Absolutely. And listen, viewer photos have been, really beautiful this week. And have a look at this one. We're going to zoom in on Halifax. Remember, we've been kind of featuring these sunsets, right? And this one is...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sky painted
nice
there
with
for
the
sure.
bridge in there. Wow, that looks great.
Terrific picture. Thank you to Ken for sharing. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. Okay, not so beautiful.
Lots of color anyway.
Lots of color, definitely. Again, New Brunswick, Western Nova Scotia, those will be our heaviest amounts of rain. Again, tapering off to the east. And it's just this relentless line, but it will come to an end as we move into Friday night and Saturday. Again, temperatures quite mild for tomorrow, 10 to 14. And then for Saturday, kind of, cooler for sure. But let's get to Sunday because we don't want to miss that. And Monday looking decent too.
I like the look of that. Okay, thanks, Ryan. Chocolate is fine, but Easter eggs filled with fruit and nuts and covered in flour and water, well, even better.
At least that's what a pair of brothers in Germany think. Yeah, these boys went searching for the savory treats just before the holiday weekend. It was one of many activities zookeepers introduced to keep the bears busy.
Some of the bears' neighbors, monkeys and mongoose, weren't quite as lucky. They had to settle for regular chicken eggs, though they were painted in a variety of colors.
I think most were pretty happy with the outcome there, don't you think?
Yeah, pretty good.
That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.